I send people guides for their engagement session that gives them an idea of the locations that I like to shoot, some outfit ideas, some like inspo for the type of session they can have. So if they want to have a go to a brewery and sit down and have a beer, cool. If they want to go for a walk in a park, cool.
Workflows is a podcast about saving you time and money in your photography business. As a photographer and content creator who struggles with dyslexia, color blindness, introversion, and anxiety stemming from years of being bullied as a child, workflows have been my rock. I have workflows for every aspect of my life. That's why I am happy to bring you Workflows, a podcast presented by Imagen. As a company dedicated to saving you time and money in your photography business, it makes sense to enhance and expand the conversation to all things workflows. Tune in to hear stories, strategies, and tools that can be your rock. Hear from people just like you. Put the camera down for a little, connect those headphones, and get to work with Workflows. Lindsay Coulter is a wedding and portrait photographer capturing timeless and on-trend photographs for couples worldwide. Although residing in Canada, Lindsay's passion for finding beauty in small details and capturing candid moments has taken her places like Australia, Bermuda, St. Maarten, Mexico, and Italy. She loves the outdoors and prefers beach houses in Malibu or cabins in the Pacific Northwest. Lindsay takes pride in getting to know each couple's unique story and essence, believing that inclusion and equality are fundamental to her personal and professional life. She cherishes the idea of photography as a way to look back on moments in time and remember how you felt, wanting couples to be taken back to their special day, no matter how much time has passed. Without further ado, here's my conversation with my friend Lindsay. Lindsay, we spoke last we spoke. You were in beautiful Hawaii, and
I
now you're
was.
back in Canada.
I know. Can you believe it? I had to leave. I'm so upset about that. They were like, "You're not an American citizen. You must leave. You
Yeah,
have clients
yeah.
at home."
But how'd that go? Because I mean, so I thought you were just going for vacation originally, but it turns out you were there for not a conference.
Yes.
Um, so how was the whole trip
Oh,
overall?
it was so good. So, yeah, Taylor and I went for a few days on our own just for pleasure. It's a long flight from Toronto, so we went for a few days to just get acclimatized, to get settled in. And then, yeah, we had a few days with the Focal Not a Conference, which was super fun. We had photographers from all over the world fly in to learn from some really awesome educators, which was, yeah, it was a blast. I feel like it's always fun getting to like shoot with other photographers and see how everybody works and does their own
Yeah,
thing. The whole idea of Not a Conference is, well, it's pretty self-explanatory, the idea that
yeah,
you're learning in not a conference setting. So
right.
we set up like styled shoots and we have models and we just try to set up these like really beautiful experiences for photographers to not only build their portfolio, but also to learn from some really awesome mentors. So yeah, it was
Yeah.
fun. It was really fun.
I often find it's the little things that really make those type of events more impactful. Like it's not necessarily like here's why this lighting equipment is good for this situation, or this lens is good for this situation, but I set my camera this way because of this. Like
Literally, something
little
so
thing.
small. Yes. It'll be like the thing that you didn't realize was a pain point for you.
Yeah.
And like I I personally don't like necessarily when I go to WPI, I don't
Mhm.
necessarily go for the same types of things that I think a newer photographer would go for, right? Like
Right.
I
Yeah.
like the socialization. I like to ask
Mhm.
my friends what kind of stuff they're shooting right now, what their workflows are looking like. You can have more intimate conversations with people when you're standing at a booth or whatever and having a
Yeah.
conversation. So, I really get a lot of value out of that.
Right.
And although I think there's a really great use for a traditional conference, I think it's also really great to, yeah, learn those like little tidbits of things that mentors don't even realize are like so impactful when they're
Yeah.
saying it. It's the thing
Yeah.
that an attendee's like, wait a second, you do what?
Yeah.
Like, Nicole Ashley
Mhm.
literally licks her thumb and smears a thumbprint on her lens to get like a more directional lens flare. Like, sure, have I heard that done in other concepts? Yes, but physically seeing someone do it and now
Yeah.
understanding more of a breakdown of exactly how she shoots a shoot, like, or how she creates an image is like, it's very cool. It's very impactful.
Yeah, I love that little stuff. It really does. I mean, the first time I learned about back button focus was at an event like that or a workshop like that, and and the what Ashley Ray was saying in the live stream that we did, where like shooting in black and white while in raw.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I've been doing that for years, and
Yeah.
I learned that at a workshop, and it changed the game, right? It's like
And
those,
it's so
it's
funny because
yeah,
I think it's like there's a couple of reasons why stuff like that is so important because one, if you are a photographer that went the traditional route with school for photography school and you probably learned from a person that was in their like peak of actually shooting with clients 10 to 15 years before, probably. That's my guess, right? Like they're now working at like our local college, the educators there, they're fantastic artists and
mhm,
photographers, but they're not necessarily using the most current Fuji camera. They're not you know
yeah,
what I mean? Like they don't
yeah,
know the exact like methodology of new editing systems that are available. So like they'll give you a really great overall picture, but even if you go that traditional route, you're still going to be missing out on newer, more current methods.
yeah.
And for most of us didn't go that route. Most of us like are self-taught or taught through friends or whatever. Sorry, I
Mhm.
feel like my dog's panting is getting so aggressive right now.
It's okay.
For anybody watching this, my dog is having a little freak out because we had an accidental fire alarm go off, and he's just so if you hear the panting, it's not me having an asthma attack. um, but yeah, I even for those of us like I'm self-taught, technically through learning from other friends and everything, as
Mhm.
most of us are. Um, it's wild the number of things that I think are like that's obvious, isn't it? That are not obvious at
Right.
all. That people just
Yep.
don't know, and it takes a lot of like guts to ask a
Yeah.
question. And sometimes you don't even know that you have the question. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you have to know
Yeah.
something in order to know that you don't know it. So
Exactly.
there's a lot,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot to learn from just watching somebody go through like setting up a shot, taking the image, creating the image, and then, you know, actually editing and delivering it. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot to learn in that whole process.
So let's start with the in-camera part. So my first
Mhm.
question I ask every guest is what is one thing you do for the photographic process behind the camera, while you're at the wedding doing the portraits, whatever it is, that has saved you time?
It's so funny. I listen to your podcast all the time and
Mhm.
I'm like, man, I don't even know how I would answer that. And now here I am I'm in this
Exactly.
in this spot and
Yeah.
I'm to answer that question that has saved me time. Um in camera. Oh my gosh, my dog. Richard, sit down. I'm delaying because I don't know the answer. I think personally, it really comes down to knowing my clients. I don't know if
Mhm.
that's not necessarily the answer, probably like camera wise that you're thinking of, but um, getting to know my clients a little bit better because one of the things that I find takes the most time in actually setting up a shot and creating an image is them fussing or fidgeting or being uncomfortable. And it takes time for them to actually get comfortable with me, for us to create an image together if we haven't like taken a little bit of a walk together. So one of the first things I like to do is like kind of just move.
Mhm.
I don't want to just like pull my camera out and be like immediately like let's get going and let's start
Yeah.
shooting. So I think the thing that saves me the most time truthfully is
Is not
feeling
shooting.
is literally not shooting.
Yeah.
Is feeling it out and taking some time because yeah, the second that I just pull the camera out too soon if they're not ready for it, um it makes them feel a little bit uncomfortable. So letting them know that I am keeping an eye on things. I'll physically say, like, I'll actually say out loud, hair's looking great, buttons are all done up, and like sort of go through my mental checklist out loud so they know that I've looked for those things. so they can then like remove that from their own mind. Because a lot of the time, we all know as portrait photographers, the clients are like, does my hair look okay? How's this outfit looking? They start fussing and fidgeting, and I'm like, you're
Mhm.
fine. I've looked at it. I'm looking at you. Um, so we just remove all of that by just getting right into it and going, trying to move a little bit and not
Yeah.
shooting, and ask how the day's going, ask what they're up to, ask what they're most excited for at their wedding or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And just sort of taking a moment to be like humans before me being a photographer and them being the subject.
I love that answer. You're the first guest to give an answer that actually had nothing to do with the camera, and I love it. I love it because
Well, you know what?
it
I'll be honest. Like I do care about cameras. Obviously, you
yeah, yeah,
kind of
of
have
course.
to.
Yeah.
I don't care about them that much. I care about my cameras enough to know, like, is this the right tool for me? Is it the best one?
Mhm.
I shoot on Canon R6s, and I have no loyalty when it comes to cameras. Like, I shot on Nikon for the first 8 years of my business,
Mhm.
and the second that I tried the R6, I was like, sell it all. I don't care. There's no better tool for me than this one because of the auto eye detection. In the Mark II, the AI auto eye detection is
Yeah.
insane. It actually tracks your eye to
Yeah.
um, look at what I'm looking at and what I would try to be focusing on in a scene. I had no love lost. I was like, if Nikon wants to come out with a product that can properly compete with this, sure, I would love
Yeah.
to not sell all my
Which they
gear,
did.
but
They did.
they did, right? They did. That was
Yeah.
a little too late for me.
A little late. Yeah.
The camera's light. It does all the things that I need it to do. And so for me,
Right.
that's what gear is. Gear is not necessarily like, and I know most photographers probably
Mhm.
feel a similar-ish way. The camera's not the the end goal for me. It's like the means to the end. So
Yeah.
for me, yeah, it is more so about the experience, and then the camera is like the tool that can hopefully make that happen
Yeah.
for me.
Awesome. So you have also been somebody who has been teaching other photographers about business. Um, Lately, you've been on a little rampage about the mini shoots, the mini sessions,
I have been
and
on a rampage. It was
so
an
yeah.
unintentional rampage,
Oh
Scott,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I did get
It's
a little bit spicy.
yeah, yeah. So we're not going to get into like that specifically, but for anybody who's listening or watching and wants to see what Lindsay has to say about mini sessions, definitely check out her socials. Um,
I do want to be clear. I believe in a mini session. I just believe in a
yes,
profitable mini session.
yes, exactly, exactly. Um,
People are gonna
so,
come to my house with pitchforks, like this girl doesn't believe in minis.
so what is one thing you do for your business? As somebody who not only is running a very successful photography business, but also educates a lot of photographers about business, what is one thing you do for your business that saves you time or money? And we're going to get to Imagine, so let's avoid Imagine in
Okay.
this entire thing until we get to Imagine.
Okay, sounds good. You know, for me, my biggest pain point is communication. It's
Mhm.
like I feel like between Instagram, text messages, like I'm always trying to streamline emails. There's so many ways that people can contact us as photographers. And I'm always trying to figure out how to get less communication and to have more efficient communication, because I don't want to
Mhm.
just like not communicate with my clients and then have them show up unprepared and wondering what the heck I'm thinking.
Yeah.
This is like a zoo happening right here. This cat just going for a tour in the
Yeah.
jungle. Um, so interestingly enough, this is not at all what I thought would happen. But a year and a half ago, I switched websites over to a focal website, and I publicly put all of my packages and my wedding pricing online,
Mhm.
and I put all of it available, so that I it's one less email that I get. It was so interesting the number of people. Can you get down, please? Oh gosh, it's gonna get scary. I'm not gonna do it. Anybody that knows a cat knows that that was the look of murder. She was not
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
help me there.
yeah.
Um, Sorry to anybody who's listening to this. They're just like, what is
Yeah, yeah,
happening?
there's panting,
There's
there's get down,
panting.
yeah. Oh, there
There's
she
a
got down.
cat losing her mind behind me. Um, the the initial inquiry emails would bog
Mhm.
down my inbox more than I realized, just for people to be priced out, for me to not be the photographer for them. So we're just like chatting for no good reason. And putting my pricing online and having my packages publicly available for people to actually book has been huge for me in the
Yeah.
last year and a half. I really hesitated, it's really not super common still in the photography industry, especially wedding photography, for us to put our full pricing available, for us to show our hand and say, this is what I charge. The
Yeah.
starting price is really, really common. Um, and for anybody who struggles with like getting lots of leads and feeling like the percentage of leads that you're getting to the conversion does not align, I highly recommend putting your pricing online. I do still have a note that says I offer custom packages. Like if none of these
Mhm.
fit your day or what you're looking for, like let me know. But it's basically streamlined my process so that people, when they inquire, it inquires with the package that they're interested in booking. So I no longer have to ask them, which package are you interested in? And I just come back with like a templated email that says either we can book in a call and here's my calendar and you can just book in with me, or if you're ready to book, which it's surprising how many people are. Like, if you're ready to book, like let me know and I'll just send over the details.
Yeah.
And some of them it's like a couple of quick messages back and forth and they're like, "Yep, no problem, take my money." And then
Yeah.
through my website, I can send them my contract and invoice. It's like such a streamlined system. Whereas before I had like, you know, Square, that I was sending them a payment through
Right.
Square or Stripe, and then I would send them a PDF contract, and it was just so many moving parts,
Mhm.
um, that, through like the Focal website backend system, I'm able to keep it all in a much more
One
concise
place.
spot.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
tried other CRMs, and I'm sure like anybody who's tried a CRM, how much time is involved in setting it up. And like I paid for I think a year and a half of like 17 hats once because I signed up for the first month. I went to go set it up and then I just was like, this is awful. I can't handle the setup process. And for some people, maybe it works really, really well. But I wanted like a CRM that was like way simpler. It just had the
Mhm.
things I needed and nothing else. Like I don't necessarily need a ton of automation. I just need enough to like make my life and my client's life easier.
I mean,
Um,
that's one of the things about the photography industry is there's the competition is there for pretty much anything you want in the industry, whether it's cameras
yeah.
or software, or accessories. Like so many things that do the same exact thing. It really a lot of the times, like for you, it comes down to the look and feel of it for yourself. Like if
Yeah.
you're comfortable with it, then maybe 17 hats is or is not the way to go versus
And, like, I
Focal's
have friends
built-in
that
stuff.
swear by it, I do. I have
Yeah.
friends that are
Yeah.
obsessed with 17 Hats and HoneyBook,
Yeah.
and I'm obviously, they don't become as big as they are without
Yeah.
having loyal customers that truly love
Yeah.
their systems,
I mean,
but
and it's the same thing whether you're going with like a mag mod versus a rogue flash system. Like they do the same exact thing. They both offer
do you like
magnet
the buttons
systems.
better on this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's literally just the look and feel. And so like so many other photographers, when I first started out, I worked in a camera store, and um, when people would come in and they would say, which point and shoot should I get? Right. This is what back in the point and shoot days
Yeah.
where that was the thing. Should I get Nikon or Canon? I'd say, pick it up. They do the same exact thing. Pick it up and see which one feels better in your hands.
Yeah.
That's the one you should get. Like
100%.
that's what it comes
And
down to.
honestly, I truly believe in that so much, like the
Yeah.
physicality of an actual physical device. But I also think photographers, it's an aesthetic industry. We care
Mhm.
about aesthetics. We care about how things look and feel. Even if your vibe is minimalism and you don't necessarily care, that's still your aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
Like even if your vibe is like really, really like high end and fine tuned, then maybe you want a more elaborate system like a honeybook or something.
Mhm.
All of these little pieces that make us up as creatives are also what make us up as business owners. It's really
Yeah.
interesting. Like the things that
Yeah.
people really personality wise enjoy and match for them, those same things carry over not just through how you create an image, but also how you deliver your service as a business
Yeah.
owner.
So let's move towards the delivery part first with part of the post-production process is editing. Now, again, we'll get to Imagine, but pre-Imagine, let's say, what is one
Yeah.
thing that you have done that you do for your editing that has saved you time?
Well, I will say Imagine has changed it because I feel like a lot of what I did do before Imagine is probably quite different now.
Hmm.
Um, I used to run like a portraiture over all of my images in Photoshop as like a
Hmm.
droplet or like an automation basically, and I would run it on
Yeah.
all of my images, and that was really, really helpful. I feel like it's going to be hard for me to not talk about Imagine because it has completely changed my entire um, like post production and editing workflow. What can I say about that? I guess
In
one of the
portraiture, you were doing just like light skin smoothing, or was it like a bunch of additional edits beyond skin
so
smoothing?
I used like the actual you know plugin that you can purchase. And then
Hmm.
it was light skin smoothing, like an eye enhancement. And I toned it way down. Like I don't know if you've ever used like the
Yeah.
actual portraiture. It's
Yeah.
very it can be very intense,
Yeah.
which is not really my style. So I kind of had it apply and then dragged it down to like 60% intensity.
Mm.
Um, and then I would export all of my images from Lightroom and then I would run all of the finished images through that to give like an overall skin smoothing and an overall sort of enhancement. The thing that I found that was really helpful is that it made it so that I didn't have to do individual masking on photos. But as you know, if you've used it, it doesn't work well on every single photo. So, I was applying it on images that didn't necessarily need it,
Mm.
or I didn't like it how it would apply on every photo. But by the time I was running it through, 800 images, I'm not going to go back and be like, oh, I'm going to re-export those photos through Lightroom. Like that wasn't happening for me.
Right.
But
Right.
it did save me a lot of time pulling images from Lightroom into Photoshop individually. So that was like a really big time saver. And I still really like that software or service. I plug in. I don't know what we're going to call that
Mm.
one specifically, but I did really enjoy it. Um, yeah, honestly, I did use post like I prior to Imagine, I used to outsource all of my editing because I just
Mm.
couldn't keep up with it. So, I pre-pandemic was shooting like 50 to 60 weddings a year, a few hundred family branding portrait sessions. Um, the time was just not there for me to physically sit down and edit
Right.
photos
Right.
myself. So I was, I've tried everything. I've tried like an individual editor sitting in my studio beside me, asking me questions, which is a really great way for me to actually train someone. I've
Yeah.
tried, I've tried every single outsourcing service. I think I said this on our live roundtable.
Yeah.
If it exists, I have tried it. I could tell you
Right.
stories about all of them. I won't, um, but I've tried them all. They all have similar problems, and a few of them have good things. Um, and and in the end, it was what was available to me at the time, and it worked. And obviously, I delivered my clients' images using them, so they were fine. Sometimes I would still have to go back and completely re-edit things, so that wasn't like
Oh
super
boy.
stellar.
Yeah.
Um, as anybody who's ever used an outsourcing company knows that sometimes you get things back and you're like, awesome. And then the exact next day, you'll get a wedding back and you'll be like,
What
who
happened?
did this? Yeah.
Right.
Did you edit this in the
Yeah.
dark? And then you edited
Right.
the other half in a bright orange room? Like,
Yeah.
how did this come back to me like
Yeah.
this? So,
I mean, I
um,
like to say that, like, there's a lot of fantastic human editors out there. I mean, as you've experienced, you can get one back that's just good to go.
yeah.
But one of the advantages or disadvantages rather of a human editor is not only just the environment and the lights and at that exact moment, but also the emotional state of the person at the time that they are editing your photos. If they're
So
in a
that's
bad
why,
mood,
yes. Yeah, that's part of the
oh,
reason why I wanted to remove the editing from my hands.
hmm,
So, being the person that has worked with that client from the start, then being the person that shot their session for them, has gone to back it up and all of that, and then is getting the emails from them after the fact. I don't want to be emotionally tied to some of those sessions while I'm editing them either. You can imagine all of the different ways, like most of my clients are amazing. During the pandemic, I did not want to edit most of my clients' sessions because I was, like, scarred by them.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
truthfully, in where we live in Ontario, up in Canada, we were locked down for longer than anywhere in the world at one point.
Yeah.
So, like, with, like a full lockdown where I wasn't able to work. We were locked down for a really consistent amount of time, which led to a lot of really serious struggles between photographers and their clients. And I understood their perspective. I got it. I would be really frustrated dealing with the things that they were dealing with as well. But it's also really hard to have somebody breathing down your neck and like fighting you on money and arguing with you on rescheduling, and then be like, let me put my heart and soul into your editing. It's hard. It's
Right.
truly
Yeah,
hard, right? So
yeah,
I felt like I was doing them a better service by me not being the one to touch every single photo in their gallery. I'm still going to do the final process of going through every single one and making sure that they're all polished and ready to go. Um, but some of my clients, I was like, I think that you'll like it more if I'm not editing this with my
yeah.
emotion behind this right now. So yeah,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
totally right. Like when you remove the human component from it, um, there are certainly challenges by removing a human from an editing, system. But so far what I have seen in doing that is far more upside than downside.
Awesome. Um, so moving even further towards the delivery aspect, normally I would take a break and ask you completely different. I would change the topic completely, but I'm gonna wait until after this question to change the topic. But
Okay.
what is one thing you do after a session? You've done the editing, everything's all good to go. What is one thing you do after a session that has increased business?
That is increased business. Oh man, I feel like there's a few things. So, um, I deliver all of my images through Pixie Set, so I think that most people can probably relate to this. If you deliver images in any way that's not a USB key, if you deliver images in an online gallery of sorts. So there's a couple of things that I like to do after a session to like, make sure that people like me essentially, which is how make sure that people, tell people about me and it increases my business. But one of them is that I try to deliver previews quickly back to my clients. Most of my clients have it included in their wedding day package, um, which is something that I added on out of necessity because a few years ago, it was probably the first time that people were ever expecting to see photos within a day or two after
Mm,
a shoot or a wedding. And, photographers are posting online sneak peeks. And I was like, how are you doing that? Like, you must have nothing going on within a couple of days after these shoots. So then you, of course, get clients saying, hey, can I have photos a couple of days after the wedding? And if everybody else in their hemisphere is getting their photos back or some photos back within a couple of days after, then I'm looking like I don't care enough or I'm too busy
yeah,
for them or whatever, right? So I did want to include it in my packages in my more like popular packages to provide some value to it, to show people that like it does pull me out of my regular workflow to create preview images for you right away. Um, and then for the people that booked like a smaller package, I had it as an add on that they could add on. So those people were less likely, if they did only book me for a smaller package, they were much less likely to bug me the next day saying, hey, when are our photos going to be ready? Because they know that it's a thing that they could have purchased. In the end, I still try to provide people with some previews really quickly if possible. Obviously, that's changed now that I can do that like almost instantly, without too much stress. Like I do a lot of
yeah,
back-to-back weddings. So the idea of like shooting a wedding on a Friday and a Saturday and then having like 2 to 5 family sessions on a Sunday and somehow getting previews back to the Friday and Saturday people without like losing my mind. Before that was insane. I still did it, but it was insane. But delivering previews to people really quickly is a really huge thing. And then the other thing, delivering a really nicely curated gallery, I think is so important. I think that photographers have the tendency to over deliver images
mm,
and to deliver like everything they think is fine, you know? So they'll deliver 5 images that are really too similar to each other and put the onus on their client to decide which one is the better image. And I personally feel like if your client has to go between, oh, is it this one or this one, this one or this one, like we've done them a disservice. Mirrorless cameras have made that really hard though, because you can shoot so many
Yeah.
really good in focus images really, really quickly. Um, which means that you have to do an even better job on your call. But delivering a really nicely curated gallery in the end, breaking it up into sections that make it really easy to digest. So I do like part one, two, and three. So I'm not dividing them up into like getting ready, you know, different sections of the day. Some people do that. That's totally fine. I just find like part one, two, and three works for me and it makes it easier to digest. Um, and then in my final template email, I think the final template email gets like the final delivery email. I call it a template, but because I template all of my. If I can make it a template, it's going to be a
Yeah.
template.
Of course.
Um, but if in that final delivery email, I think there's a few things that are really important to say. One of them is like you pump their tires and say like, "I loved your wedding day. It was so fun for me." And then you say something specific like, you know, your first dance. I like still am thinking about the song you chose. So sweet, right? You say something really nice.
Mhm.
um, then you tell them, you know, how to download their images, how to make favorites, how to like you make it easy for them. And then you ask for the review. And I think it's so often overlooked to ask for a review. This is the time when people want to give you a review. They're like in awe. They're looking at your photos and they're like, this is crazy. I can't believe you did this for us. So I send that ask in the preview delivery that I send and in the final delivery. So it's like a double parted reminder. And I have a lot of really good reviews because of that. So yeah, I think it's so important about being intentional about every single step of
Yeah.
like the delivery and how people get images. And also just waiting the right amount of time. You know, I think we talked about this on our like live roundtable. Um, if I deliver images too quickly, there is something to be said for like all of the images too quickly. There's something to be said for people being like, what's the value here? What did you
Right.
just
Yeah.
pay for?
Did you care enough?
Did you care?
Yeah. Yeah.
And also I think it's just too fresh in their minds. Even if they believe I literally dropped everything from the second that their wedding ended until the time I delivered it, which sometimes like maybe they do believe that. Even if they believe that I just edited straight through for 1 week, um, I think that it's still too fresh in their minds, and people need to have a little bit of, they need to miss their wedding a little bit more in order to really
Yeah.
truly appreciate the value. You know, we as photographers know that the images we deliver increase in value over time. My wedding photos mean more to me now than they did the day that they were shot for many reasons. You know, my family photos from 10 years ago mean more to me now than they did 10 years ago. We know that, but our
Mhm.
clients don't necessarily know that. So I think giving them a little bit of breathing room to really feel like, wow, that was such a special day. And like, look at these photos that document like way more and way better than I could have ever expected that they would.
Yeah. Awesome. Um, that's very well said. A lot of good stuff
Thank
there.
you. Thank you.
Um, so before we move into the big juicy part of this conversation, we're gonna lighten it up real quick. You're gonna pick a color.
Interview deck. Okay. I'm going
Oh
with
yeah,
green.
you're going with green. Okay. Now you cannot blame me for what question you get because you're
Oh
picking
no.
this. Tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay. This is
Oh
all
no. I'm
you.
like
This is all you.
nervous now.
Okay.
I'm sweating.
What?
I mean, now's the time when we really need to hear Richard panting in the back to like get the anxiety.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna give you a pass if you wanna go to a new one.
Oh, it's that bad?
It's an interesting one.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna read it to you, and if you wanna pass, we'll go for the one
Pat,
that's
you're
next on.
blushing. Is it
Yeah.
bad?
No, no, it's just, I don't know. I just don't know if you're gonna have an answer that you're gonna be happy with.
Okay.
What antiquated invention do you still use?
Antiquated invention do I still
Yeah,
use?
I'm telling you. Yeah, that's why I'm like, you can pass if you want to.
Like, I need to Google exactly what antiquated means, because I feel like yeah, old-fashioned or outdated. Well, no, I can answer that actually
All right.
easily. I still
All
use
right.
a Canon AE1, which is, like, I think an
Okay.
antiquated invention.
Yeah.
It's really making an absolute comeback right now,
It is.
um but yeah, I use the Canon AE1 film camera. I love it.
Mhm.
Um, Absolutely not an invention, I guess, that needs to be used anymore. I could probably emulate most of what it does in, you know, an R6.
Yeah.
Yes and no. I don't know. I feel like most antiquated inventions, if they're kicking around, there's a reason for it, whether it's nostalgia or yeah, I don't know. For me, the reason that I use it, truthfully, is because I use it a lot for my personal, just like
Mhm.
family photos and travel, because I don't have to do anything to the images afterwards. I just am like, here you go. And I give them to the lab, and then they come back
Yeah.
to me, and I'm like, you're beautiful. And it's like a very heavily curated, like maybe it's only 2 photos from an entire trip.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep.
It's
Yeah,
like
that's
it
that was
brings you back to, like, your childhood when you
yeah.
would go through an actual album, and it's not 5,000 images, and it's not overwhelming, it's just like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
love that." So, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think it's like on a roll of 36, it was typically like one photo that would you be like really happy with, and then the rest would be like, all right.
And,
So,
like, I don't know if you shoot much film. Do you shoot film at all, Scott?
not as much as I want to. I've got a whole bunch on the shelf behind me, and I not as much as I want to,
Yeah,
but
so I think because I don't shoot, like, super often on film, like, I don't
mhm.
shoot it for clients that they know of. I shoot a couple of frames at almost every wedding, and I don't tell them that I'm doing it. Sometimes they can hear it and they're like, "What's going on over there?"
That's a different noise.
Um, but it's not a thing that I sell them on. I
Mhm.
do it as, like, a little nice if it works out kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, One of the interesting things about most film cameras is you have absolutely no idea if they work until you've processed your
Yeah.
first roll of film through them. So,
Yep.
like, or if they work well, I this is my 4th AE1 that I've had. One of them just, like, sputtered oil or something all over the inside of the film. So,
Nice.
like, it was an
Okay.
interesting effect, but it was not what I
Yeah.
wanted. Um, I shot an entire roll of film in Iceland, and I
Mhm.
felt like it wasn't really like, when I cranked it, I felt like it wasn't really doing anything, and then when I released the entire roll, nothing released, like, I hit the release button on the bottom and nothing released, and I was like, "Did that just not shoot at
Oh
all?"
boy.
And I have no idea, it's still an absolute mystery to me and everybody that was around me during Iceland, like, it I have no idea what happened, but basically there are like 5 frames on a roll of 36, and I know in my mind some of those photos would have been so gorgeous, but they'll just live in my
Yeah.
mind now more because I actually remember making them, but
Yeah.
they were never made.
Yeah.
They were
That's
never actually created. But,
yeah.
that's the downside to film and part of the reason why I will not shoot it for clients as a, like,
Yeah.
guarantee,
Yep.
because I'm a big fan of backups. I'm a real, real big fan of backups. There's a reason why it's antiquated.
Yeah. There's not to foreshadow too much, but there's a reason why Imagine's getting into offering backups. And this is one of them.
Yes,
So,
seriously, backups are so important. I think, like, um, I I have a tendency to get very stressed out during wedding season. I'm sure no other
mm.
photographer does, right? Nobody else, just me. I do have
You're
a
the
really
only one.
serious I'm the only one. I know, I'm working on it. September, October for me tends to be a very, very, like, emotionally distressing time for a few reasons, right? It's like if you have the backlog of the summer breathing down
Mm,
your neck, then you're looking down the barrel of what's gonna be a really busy fall,
mhm,
and I also usually have travel coming up sometime in the fall, like, you gotta way up north, you gotta go to Europe for, or, like, a family trip in November, something coming up, right? And I'm like, I feel like I'm being sandwiched by all of these responsibilities and pressures. One of the biggest things that I think of when I'm stressed, I, like, wake up in the middle of the night, like, I didn't back up that shoot, or I didn't back up that wedding,
Mhm.
like, it's never happened before. I've never
Yeah.
not backed something up,
Yeah.
but those things make me lose sleep, and, traveling a lot really, compounds that. So I basically have come up with my own personal set of backups for every single thing that I've ever created an anxiety over. Like, did I format those cards and shoot over them? So now I don't format any cards until I've delivered galleries to all of my for sessions or for weddings. I don't
Yep.
format any cards, and I just like have this like locked case of so many SD cards. I back up in multiple places, obviously, as everybody does, but backing things up online is a really huge thing so that you can actually physically see when you're traveling, like, are they there? Because if they're in your
Yep.
online spot, they're in your other spot at home as well, right? Like,
Yep.
we have a fireproof safe. You just come up every
Yeah.
single whenever my clients ask me, like, what are your backups? I'm like, any possible worst case scenario you can think of, I've had a nightmare about.
Yep.
I've literally lost sleep over. And so instead of just continuing that, which is like a terrible way to run your business and a terrible way to live your life, I'm just like, let's just create a process for it. Let's just build that out of reality so it's literally not a thing anymore because I don't need more stress in my life. And it's just, I can't be creative when I'm stressed. I truly can't. If I'm
Yeah.
financially stressed, if I'm stressed about losing images, if I'm stressed about my inbox, if I'm stressed about
Mhm.
anything, like going into a wedding is just, it's hard,
So
right? It's like trudging through
yeah.
quicksand. So, yeah, I think anywhere that you feel like stressed, it's like, oh, just get rid of it. Let's
Yeah.
solve it out.
Let me ask you a question before we dive into the next question, because the next one's a pretty heavy duty one. Um, uh, let's say you're using Imagine to cull and to edit, right? For
Yeah.
the full that full process. Imagine if while the photos were uploading to cull, right, first,
Yeah.
um, if we were backing up your catalog with your raw photos for you, and you don't have to think
Yeah,
about
that's
it.
bonkers. That's bonkers. Yeah.
Um,
Um,
so like keeping it in that simple workflow where you're already using it to cull anyway to then eventually edit. We're just storing it for you as your disaster recovery. Would that reduce or remove your anxiety of
yeah,
all those?
massively.
So
Massively.
so welcome to the future.
That's that's so amazing. That is
Yeah.
so awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna
Wow.
be cool. Yeah.
That's
The
that's really huge.
yeah, the prototypes for it are pretty pretty sweet. So I'm very excited about it for it to like
And it backs up, does it back up the called catalog? It backs up the catalog, so
the
everything you
full
import.
catalog, and then we'll cull for you, and then without you having to re-upload it or anything, we're uploading basically what's happening is we'd be uploading your backup, to back up, and then you would do the
Right.
cull and edit anything else in the future, send to your gallery, all from that backed up original catalog.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's very, very cool.
So
Well, I'm
yeah.
excited about that.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun when it's out. I'm very excited as well. Um, so we're running out of time, but I want to try to get to these last couple questions. This next one is a pretty heavy duty one, so let's see if you can break it down. Nice bullet points. Can you share from a 30,000-foot view down a view that you're very familiar with because you travel a lot? um, an outline breakdown of your workflow from lead to delivery.
Oh, yeah, okay, I totally can, and I can
Cool.
do this in an efficient way because I,
Nice.
just built a course, that's actually coming out very soon. I don't know when this podcast episode's coming out, but it'll probably be out by then.
June 1st.
Um, June 1st. Okay, so yeah, my course will be out. So, I can tell you this because I literally basically made a course on, like, my
Mhm.
start to finish, how I run things. So,
Nice.
a lead comes in. I've already told you, they inquire hopefully with an actual package. I respond with a templated email with all the things that I already told you. Here's
Mhm.
a Calendly link, get booked in. Let's say they choose that option. We book a meeting. I respond, after the meeting, and I'm pretty uh direct about that after meeting, like they know after the meeting if they're booking or not usually. So I usually just send them the contract and invoice right away, which is all done through the Focal backend system, which is awesome. Um, People pay generally within an hour. If you're not accepting credit card payments, grow up. No, just kidding. But accept credit card payments. Try build it into your pricing if you must.
Yeah.
But
It's so easy
um,
at this point to,
people really
you
want
know,
to pay with a credit card,
yeah.
like they really do. In Canada, it's even more important because we don't have Cash App and Venmo. It's not a thing.
Hmm.
So it's really challenging for people to pay us in any other way. They can send an in-track transfer. They have to go into their online banking. They have to set up a password. It's a whole scene. Nobody wants to do that. So I accept
Yeah.
credit card payments. Then, we set up an engagement session, usually sometime soon-ish. I send people guides for their engagement session that gives them an idea of the locations that I like to shoot, some outfit ideas, some like inspo for the type of session they can have. So if they want to go to a brewery and sit down and have a beer, cool. If they want to go for a walk in a park, cool. Here are like all of the options. So they don't feel like they have to reinvent the wheel on anything. After the engagement session, delivery, like I said, I send them through Pixie Set. I send them their images with like a nice buttoned up templated email, basically telling them what's coming next, which is then getting into wedding planning. Usually there's a pretty big gap, right? So say there's like an 8-month gap or something. A couple of months beforehand, I'll send them an email asking them. Now, actually, I've just been started to send them out questionnaires. Like I said, I didn't really love a CRM, so I felt like that was the best way for me to send out questions before was just like I would send them a few specific questions in an email. So now I'm sending them a questionnaire that's built into the same backend dashboard system of my website that just asks them like some details about where are you getting ready, blah 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 blah. All the standard things that we
Hmm.
need to know about where should I be and when. And then I actually create a photo timeline for my clients. I don't really like being given one because they don't know, they don't know what's best as far as the photography schedule. Um, and again, I try to remove as much homework for my clients as I can. Um, so I skipped through some. Oh no, I didn't. I'm like, wait, what bullet point am I on? No, so I send them all of these things, just asking them where am I supposed to be and when. And then I create the itinerary for them. I think the itinerary is so important for
Hmm.
so many reasons because like the pre-production is the production essentially. Like that
Right.
pre-planning is how we ensure that there is enough time to get really nice flat lays or to make sure we have lots of time for couples portraits and family photos and all the things that are priorities for my clients. Day of the wedding, I do the thing. We shoot the wedding. It's always nice. I show up really early, like an hour early to most weddings, and I just sit in the parking lot and drink a water and chill out with my second. I go at dinner time. This is like a really crucial part of my workflow that's like very, very new. I process everything and call it, and then I immediately during dinner upload that catalog to Imagine and have everything that's been shot up until that time um, edited and done. I know you're shocked, Scott. You've never heard this before. Nobody does this. No. But like literally up until dinner time now, everything is basically edited. So I
Hmm.
can then go through at dinner because there's usually too much downtime and I can't stand downtime on a wedding day. But there is usually too much downtime on a wedding day during dinner when you're waiting for courses and speeches. So I actually go through and start making my selects for their previews that I'm going to send them the next day. Um, After the wedding, I go home and do a full proper backup and then finish doing the cull and edit through Imagine of the rest of those images, which is like usually only, I don't know, 400 or 500 images that I've shot after dinner into the reception, depending on how long the day is. Um, Next morning, I pretty much finish everything. I go through every single image and it's like a next, 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 next.
Yeah.
And I then mark things that need to be delivered as previews. And I make another mark for things that need to be more finely retouched. And that's a step that I never used to do. Fine retouching. Like I would leave exit signs in, I would leave
Mhm.
flyaways in. When you're delivering 1,000 images, 50 weddings over, it's just not possible to do all of that. And I kind of believed like, oh, my clients aren't expecting that. And they probably weren't because that's not what I was showing. I wasn't showing really, really polished images on my Instagram or website because I wasn't doing that. So I don't think that they were expecting it. But now I'm able to actually go through and because I want to spend time. I enjoy editing images. Like I want to spend some time polishing their photos, but now it gives me the ability to actually like truly invest in like the images, in the like printable like photo book images. Those are the ones that I'm actually spending the time like really really spending time on. Um I'll do an export and then upload, and then I'll sit on them sometimes for a little bit. Um, I'll deliver obviously the previews right away, and then I'll sit on the rest of them for a little bit. Sometimes I'll go back to them and see if I need to, make any changes or if fresh eyes a couple weeks later have changed
Right.
anything for me.
Mhm.
But for the most part, just ship it ready to go, deliver the online gallery. Um, and then wait for them to send me a nice review. Um, I'm trying to think if I missed anything in there. I feel like
What do you
that's
use to design your albums?
oh, um, great question. I use this is really janky actually. I use Kiss, their designer,
Mhm.
to design my albums, and then I actually make do you mean like photo books when you say albums?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not saying albums, and then we're thinking online gallery albums. I use the Kiss designer. It's really, really nice. I pay for like their premium service in order to get all of their templates
Mhm.
unlocked. And then I use Wooden Banana for my albums because their albums are so beautiful, and I think
Mm,
aesthetically they're really a lot more in line with what my clients are looking for, and their price point is phenomenal, like really, really phenomenal.
yeah.
Um, Kiss's price point is just like so out of line of what I think my clients would be interested in paying. And even if they were, it would really eat into the amount that I would be able to make. But Wood and Bananas albums are really really gorgeous, and I also for clients that have purchased like one of my more top tier packages, I send along like a USB and print box, and you
Mhm.
can get matching USB and print boxes custom made through Wood and Banana. So
Nice. I love the wooden banana as a brand, and I always thought it's funny that, like, they make things that are not wood. Like, like,
I
there's
know. The
I
name
guess
totally
technically
throws me off, but
paper
you're
is
not gonna forget
right.
that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
I
Yeah.
saw their products in person for the first time at
Mhm.
one of the Way Up North that I went to, I think in Italy,
Yeah.
maybe a few years ago, and I was
Mhm.
stunned. I was like, "Velvet? This is just it's very unique."
Yeah.
I really love the imprinting. They're doing really cool things, and their service is really, really exceptional. So yeah, I'm a really big fan of their photo books.
Cool.
But yeah, editing or actually creating um, the albums.
Mhm.
I probably should switch to Fundy at some point. It's just one of those things that I haven't done yet in the workflow.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like so I've never used the Kiss designer, but I feel like the ones that I have tried, they're all very similar in use.
Like a drag and
Um,
drop kind of
yeah,
situation.
yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, I always come back to Fundy. It's the OG of
Yeah.
album designers, and
All I
it just yeah, it's
Yeah,
fantastic.
all I really care about is being able to make sure that I'm not including duplicate images in a gallery, like you need to make sure that your album builder is like giving you a flag like you've already used this image or whatever,
Yeah,
and then the ability to send it to my clients with it being like white labeled.
yeah,
There are some
yeah.
album builders that are like this is from if it
Right.
said this is from Kiss, I'm like, well, that's not awesome because now all my client has to do is go and find out how much this book
Yeah,
actually physically cost, right? So I need it to be white labeled.
yeah.
Um, the Kiss builder is very nice for that. But I'm sure the Fundy one, I'll switch after this conversation, Scott. Now you've got me thinking about it.
Well,
I
I'm not
truthfully,
saying you have to switch,
I don't
I
create
know.
that many albums.
Yeah.
I really don't do a ton every year. It's something that I would really like to do more of, but
Mm,
before this is gonna sound like an immediate Imagine plug, but truly before Imagine, I didn't have time to be thinking about more steps in the workflow of more services that I could offer my clients. I'm like, "Please
Yeah.
don't order an album from me. I do not have time to be doing that
Yeah.
right now," right? Like, I
Well,
was just
so
barely getting things delivered to them, never mind,
yeah.
like, "Oh, yeah, let's add another 6 weeks to this relationship."
Right. Right. So you're getting into what is one of my next questions. So let's just get right to that question. How did Imagine impact your life?
Yeah, okay, so crazy. I feel like photographers do have the tendency to be like, "This changed my life,"
Mhm.
like, "This system
Yeah.
changed my life." There are not many things that I will say that about. I've been a photographer for 10 years. There are not many things that I will say that about, like, "Oh, this changed my life." Changed
Mhm.
my photography business? Sure. Changed my workflow? Sure. Changed my efficiency? Sure. But Imagine literally changed my life because I was struggling so hard to just I wanted to provide my clients with a luxury service. And I
Mhm.
think involved in a luxury service is really great communication, really great delivery times, a really beautiful end product, a really great in-person experience. And I always felt like my editing workflow was the thing that put the brakes on that because I could do an amazing job, but if I deliver a wedding 2 weeks late, immediately their opinion of everything I did up until that point is gonna change, right? Like, being on the receiving end of, having been the client that maybe gets photos back longer than you expected, it hurts the relationship between you and the photographer regardless of how good of a job they've done, and that's such a bummer, and I didn't want all of that hard work that I had done, to impact my relationship with my clients. So not now the reason why it didn't just, like, impact my photography business, it impacted my whole life is because I had such bad anxiety about editing. I was missing family get-togethers. If I was at them, I was, like, frazzled. I was, like, almost, like, mad, like, "Why are you even asking me about how work is? You know how work is. I'm freaking
Yeah.
out. I'm burnt out. I'm behind. I shouldn't even be here right now." And I've never asked my parents, but I would imagine that they would be like, "You weren't, like, a super fun person to be around sometimes because you would come to these family get-togethers with like sort of a I need to be back at my computer
Mhm.
feeling right now, right? Even when I was outsourcing, like I had one really bad experience where I had an outsourcing company drop the ball on a wedding before Christmas. And I'm like, one of my sort of rules for myself is that I deliver everything before Christmas. Even if I shot that wedding on like December 20th. I
Mhm.
deliver all of my stuff before Christmas because I know clients are going to be with their families and they really want to be able to show over the holidays, right? Whether that be Christmas or whatever. But I want to make sure that they are able to show their family their images while they're together for the holidays. And I had an outsourcing company really heavily drop the ball on a wedding that I had shot in November. So it's not like they didn't have a lot of lead time. They did. And they dropped the ball on their customer service and they dropped the ball on the editing. And I ended up editing that entire wedding over the Christmas holidays so that I could get them back at least before the New Year's. And that really soured my entire opinion of outsourcing as a whole because I felt like it's interesting. You think imagine people think that they're losing control, but actually you're gaining it all back, right? Like they think in giving the control over to AI that they're losing something in some way. That's how I felt about outsourcing. I felt like I was giving all of my, you know, I was like, here is this gorgeous wedding I'm giving you, and please make it nice, and you just hope that they don't decide that day's a magenta day, like
Right. Right.
you really have no idea what you're gonna get back. And if you get it back on a day that you're already behind and it's really bad, then that can be a really stressful thing and can be really bad for your own mental health, for your
Mhm.
relationships with your clients, your relationships with the people in your life. Um, just overall really, really crummy. Um, and then, it changes how you feel about the overall finished product. You feel like you're hesitantly delivering a gallery that maybe isn't as awesome as it should be. Um, and or it's really awesome, but it took a whole heck of a lot to get there. So that's kind of it, there's a lot of like emotional baggage tied up in some of that delivery.
Mhm.
Ever since sort of switching everything over, so I delivered every single shoot that I did last year through Imagen, every single thing. So I think I know how many photos it was in the end because I ended up creating a new profile off of it. So it's 22,000 images that I ended up processing through Imagen last year. And I went to the cottage. I was present. It was lovely. I had way less stress about like, am I missing files or have I not backed something up? Even though, like I said, it's never been a thing that I've ever done before, but it's still, it's just when you're stressed about something, your brain goes to the easiest thing that you could
Yes.
stress about, right? It's like,
Yeah.
what's the first
It
thing I
just
could freak out
piles and
about?
piles and piles and piles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you think like, did I not back things up? The great thing is that I'm like, the gallery's done. Like, I don't have
Yeah.
anything to think about. Like, if I wanted to, I could pull up the entire catalog right now and physically see it and know everything's all good. Like, you know, it removed so many barriers that were like really huge pain points for me in my business at every level, not just the editing level, right? Like um, I I do a lot of family sessions in the fall, and I remember there have been many sessions that I show up to the family session, literally like I better not overshoot right now because I don't have time to edit all of these and to go through all of them and to deliver a ton if I overshoot. So now I'm like holding myself back creatively because of the editing process. So it's not just the editing process that gets impacted by it. It's like everything. Um, not only that, but the financial side of things, outsourcing the equivalent of 22,000 images or more or whatever, that's a very expensive day. So I was spending like well over $10,000 a year on outsourcing, like well over. One year, I think I spent close to $20,000 on outsourcing. And last year I spent like 2,500 on like a lot of photos to be edited. So
Yeah.
um, I truly can't say enough. I really can't. Like, I'm so grateful, not only to Imagine for like existing and continuing to evolve in the areas that we need, but
Mhm.
also to the photographers that talk about it. It's part of the reason that I talk about it so much because I'm like, I wouldn't have wanted to experience what 5 more years of my life like it was. Um, in the future. So I'm trying to save people from that because it it is what's going to lead to burnout. It's what's going to lead to photographers really having a not great time with their businesses and then just quitting because they're just not
Yeah.
going to be able to
I
handle it
mean,
anymore.
yeah, that kind of anxiety, stressful pileups, it just inevitable will lead to a breakdown of at some point.
It has to,
So
right? It that
yeah,
that stress has to go somewhere. It can't
yeah,
live in your body forever. So you're either gonna
yep,
get physically sick, you're gonna get mentally sick. It's going to like we all know photographers. I think every single full-time photographer knows someone who has disappeared and who
yep,
has ghosted and who has left clients and who has moved away because their backlog became so insurmountable that they literally couldn't even imagine a way out. They just disappeared. And
yeah,
to me, that's so sad. Like, I've had people's clients reach out to me saying, "Do you know where this person is?" And I'm like, "No." And they've just like literally changed their name and left the city. So I don't know
yeah,
what to say to you. But it's so crazy to me that there's such a simple solution. And so I think it's so important that, the photographers that do use it keep sharing, keep telling people about it. Um, it's the kind thing to do. It's a like I every time I talk about it, either the photographers that I speak to are like, "Oh yeah, I'm already in, like, completely invested, like, don't stop selling," you know?
yeah, yeah,
Or they're like, "This is what I've been waiting for. Thank you so much," and they're, like,
yeah,
beyond grateful. So, um, yeah, thanks for creating, like, one heck of a product, and every single thing that you're doing, like, keeps improving. Like, I know I just told you that I just, updated my profile using
mhm,
the adjustments tool. Like, wow, what a cool because again, if you're using like an outsourcing company, you want to explain to them, okay, this year I'd like to go a little bit warmer and I'd like my yellows specifically to be a little bit less saturated.
Yeah.
that's a 6-month process before they start figuring that out for you.
Yeah. And now you can do
Like,
it instantly. Instantly.
instantly,
Yeah.
instantly. Like, the last
Yeah.
few sessions that I have processed through are literally perfect, like,
Yeah.
quite literally perfect. Like, they are export ready, done.
It's amazing.
So, yeah.
So, I mean, on behalf of everybody at Imagine, I'm very happy that, or we are very happy that we're able to help get rid of all that anxiety for you. I know backups are still there, but and I get it because I'm the same way. Um, Eventually that'll get, you know, that'll be gone from your
I
anxiety.
can't wait. I'm so
But,
excited. I'll just
um,
text you all the things that stress me out in my life, and you guys will be like, "Here's some."
fix this. Yeah,
First of all, call your therapist, you lunatic. But, like, I say that as a person who happily goes to therapy. I'm not insulting people who go to therapy. Um, yeah, I think therapy and Imagine, those are like the 2 things that changed my life. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, hey, I'm right there with you, right there with you. So, Lindsay, where can listeners learn more about you, connect with you, and of course, see your incredible photography?
Oh, thank you. Instagram is like a pretty good hub to find me, what I'm up to. I share on my stories fairly often, pretty much every day I'm there hanging out. So it's L Coulter, Coulter photo on Instagram. And then from there, you can find all of my links. My course is at betterthanbooked.com. You can find that if you're interested in you know, figuring out how to become like a really well booked photographer, but one that's like actually really happy in their life too. I think that's like a really huge thing that's missing in the photography industry is like, yeah, do you want to be a 6-figure burnt out photographer or a 6-figure thriving and happy and content and peaceful photographer? And that's like my goal, be
Yeah,
surrounded by
100%.
plants and well hydrated people. That's all we need.
You are surrounded by plants, whether you're in your house or in your studio. There's always plants near you.
Honestly, I think it's like a good symbol of growth and thriving.
I wish that in my dungeon of an office studio, I had a little bit of sunlight that I could take advantage of for real plants, but
You could
I don't.
totally have real plants in
So
there. You could get like a couple of little grow lights. No
I
problem.
could, I could, but
We
I've
can
got a
make that
fake
happen for you.
bonsai as a karate nerd. I've got a fake bonsai back there. So
That's pretty cool though. I feel like
yeah,
that's allowed. That's allowed.
yeah, yeah.
Your setup is pretty
Um,
sweet, Scott.
Thank you. So thank you, Lindsay, for this awesome chat. I know that there's a ton of takeaways for all the listeners out there. So I really appreciate you taking the time and chatting with me and sharing all of your insights about all of your workflows um, and all that fun stuff.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks again for making such a stellar product. It's seriously a joy. I love it and I love working with you guys. So thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Lindsay, so much for that incredible conversation. I know there are so many great takeaways for all the Workflows listeners. You have been listening to Workflows, presented by Imagine. To hear more from Workflows, to find links to our guests, and for an exclusive offer for Workflows listeners, please go to imagenai.com/podcast and be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.